Evolution of management thought is a process that began with the earlier days of humans. It began when man found the need to live in groups. We always believe that there are two concepts in management. One is called as the body. The other one is called as the mind. So we're going to talk about these two words very, very clearly here. Industrial Revolution of the 18th century brought a huge change to the entire world. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Management Principles and Practice for the first semester B.B.A. We're going to talk on a very, very important topic today, and that's going to be Introduction to Management in the Unit 1. So let's just go further and try to understand the importance of management in the modern day world. Well, management is such an interesting subject which can never be defined in one word or in a sentence. It is so mystical, it has got so many factors inside it that you would probably feel that management is bigger than the ocean. So why do we need to study management? Each one of us is a born entrepreneur. Let me try to explain the statement. Why? Each one of us love to manage something or the other. We want to manage our own business. We want to manage our own brand, our identity, our asset, our value, our leadership qualities. All of these things have been spelled clearly in management. So for every one of us, management is the most important thing, where I just triggered down to this word called as managerial skills. It is very, very essential for each one of us to understand this capacity, understand the meaning of this word, and take it forward. When you start thinking about a business today, most of us think that business is all about money, or business is all about just having people together, or probably business is all about sales. But let me put you in a very simple word. The combination of all is given by a single word called as management. How do you manage a business? How do you put your ideas forth? How do you think that you can make a business into a successful venture? All this have been defined under the managerial skills. So it's very, very important for us that if you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you want to grow as a leader, you want to grow as a manager, you want to be a path vision, you want to be a leader in all the aspects that you do, you need to have the management skills in your roots. That's why it is very, very important that we learn this subject and we take it forward. Now, managing any business has several stages, which means let's say that we will understand management step by step. Management is not a single day exercise, or management is not something just like a magic. Management is like building the city of Rome. And all of us know that Rome was not built in a day. So similarly, you cannot become a successful manager overnight. You cannot become a leader by just spelling management. You cannot learn management skills by just reading books. You need to practice it. You need to understand the importance of management. You need to see that management comes inside on the practical application. So it's very important for all of us to understand how management actually comes in play. So let's understand this factor, the evolution of management. We have to see that in the coming era of the globalization, digitization factor, how management actually shapes the entire business venture. So let's just move forward today and try to understand about the evolution of management. Moving forward, evolution of management thought is a process that began with the earlier days of humans. It began when man found the need to live in groups. Now, very, very interesting. Let's first try to understand this entire concept. Man is not an isolated island. No human being in this world lives in an island. We all live in crowded cities. We all live in a developed society. We all live in a society that has got humongous expectations. So every day in and day out, we keep thinking about how to achieve something, how to get something, how to satisfy our needs. So there, the concept of management starts emerging right forward. We start understanding that management cannot be just taken so lightly. Management cannot be just spelt out and said that I know few theories in management, I have a qualification, so I'm a qualified manager. Absolutely wrong. How does management actually come into picture? It comes into picture by understanding the people around you. It comes into picture by putting in that theory into practice. So let's try to understand that it is a process where we are trying to understand the human needs. It's a process where we are trying to understand the expectations. It's a process where we are trying to put forward all the essential factors that you need to run a system, to run an organization. So evolution of management is all about a thought process. It evolves with a thought. How can we do things better? How can we evolve? How can we take forward? How can we rebuild this entire society? Now moving forward, the mighty men soon organized the masses and distributed them among groups. We love this word called groups. Let me just explain you this word called groups. Groups and groupism. This is something that we have learnt it inherently. Moment you see a group of people standing in the road, you want to go and find out what happened. Your inquisitiveness starts growing up within you. Why is that? Because we always believe that we belong to the herd mentality. We believe that we are all a part of a group. A group gives me identity. When people ask you where you are from, you just don't want to name your town or your city or your district. But you want to go ahead and explain the entire version. You want to give out the entire history about your existence. That's the very basic ideology under which man has come up. So we always say this factor that group and groupism is what that we believe all about. So the first thing that we learned in management is divide people and start ruling them. So that's why we divided people into groups. We started understanding that each and every group is unique. They need to be segmented. They need to be told with an identity who you are, where you belong to, what are your needs, and how you need to segregate yourself. So we started segregating them. We started putting them into different parts, into different sections altogether, and then we started evolution of management. Next, the sharing and distribution process is completed according to the strength, intelligence, and mental capability of masses. Look at the words. These words are really important words that you probably need to think for a minute. We always believe that there are two concepts in management. One is called as the body. The other one is called as the mind. So we're going to talk about these two words very, very clearly here. One, the body. The two, mind. It's always a competition between the body and the mind. Why? One side, man believes that muscle is everything. The more you look stronger, the more you look well built, that itself gives you a leadership personality. That itself gives you a strong identity. This is one school of thought. I'm not just going only with that. Let me come to the second school of thought, which says that mind is everything. You don't need to have a body. You don't need to have an Herculean figure. You don't need to push the rocks. You don't need to show your biceps. You don't need to show your triceps, but you need to show basic intelligence. You need to have that problem-solving capacity. You need to go and tell people how you can achieve solutions in the given time. There, people start accepting you. Wow, he's genius. He's too good. Let us take him, let us accept him as a leader. So there are two concepts under which management evolves. One, when you look into a group of physically strong, the strength, the force, the mass that you carry. The other side, you look into a factor, you look into a group of section of people who are completely oriented by mind. They believe in intelligence. They believe in the problem-solving activities. They believe in planning. They believe in action through mind. So, body versus mind, two important concepts that you need to understand in the evolution of management. Going forward, beginning of civilization, the effective practice of management also began. So with all this theory, with all this history running in the background, we also started taking management as a serious exercise. Now, management just started because of the factor that men got more civilized, we got more civilized, human beings started getting into certain norms of living conditions and standards, and then management started evolving as an entire activity altogether. Moving forward, the evolution of management thought. Now, if you look through this, we're going to divide it into 4 major stages as prescribed in the syllabus and also by the management gurus. The first one is the pre-scientific management, the classical theory, neoclassical theory, or the behavior approach, the bureaucratic model of Max Weber. So just have a quite close look into all these 4 factors. If you just go through here, you will be able to understand that management was classified time by time on a periodical basis. So we will see a pre-scientific management method. We will also see a classical theory, a neoclassical model, which is again behavioral approach, and then a bureaucratic model given by Max Weber. Moving forward, let's first try to understand the pre-scientific management period. Industrial Revolution, a word which nobody can forget in this generation or probably the generation to come. Why? Industrial Revolution of the 18th century brought a huge change to the entire world. The first time ever, the world started seeing a huge increase in terms of employment, increase in terms of opportunities, increase in terms of production activity. Man started believing that the best way to revolutionize the world is not through war, but it is through machines. It is actually through productivity. If you start understanding history, very close quarters I'm trying to talk about, where I would like to say that the concept of industrial revolution is more about awakening of man, making him understand his abilities, his skills of going forward and creating a whole lot of opportunity for the future generation to come. That's where industrial revolution actually came up with a whole lot of opportunity. It was just, a spark that came out, a bolt out of the sky, which really transformed the civilization. Now, when you look here, there was a huge impact on the Industrial Revolution. Why? Because the Industrial Revolution could create an impact on the management. Management started thinking how to manage people. How can I manage those laborers? How can I manage those people? What techniques we have to follow? One side, we are talking about a great revolutionary idea. The other side, we need to organize people, finance, and the production. So now the question of individual plus organization plus management, society, all these factors started coming in. One side, man was very happy that he's transforming the world. The other side, he's also worried about the factor that he has got too much on his plate to organize things, to manage. So that's where management started seeing a pressure. Management started seeing that a whole new activity has to be done. It has to be taught. It has to be practiced. So that's why the concept of this industrial revolution is very, very important when it comes to the concept of management. Now, moving further, entrepreneurs then had access to production factors like land, labor, and capital. Look at these 3 words: land, labor, and capital. Very, very important words which I would like to say. Why? Because this is not just economics, but this is also management. This is the fundamental aspect that you need to understand in terms of running a business. You need to have access to land, you need to have access to capital and to people. That's what makes the fundamentals of business come up very strong. So what happens here is that once you have acquired land, you have acquired the labor, and you have the sufficient capital with you to start the business, then comes the most challenging part of the story, and that's what is called as integrating these 3 and getting it into one single factor called as organization or management. Now, this becomes very, very important for all of us to understand. Let's try to understand this story very, very clearly. Why? Because once we combine things, that means we are ready to achieve something. We have a target in our mind. We have certain factors. We have certain belief which is kept ready in our mind. We have to work accordingly. We have to take things accordingly there. So that means there is going to be some sort of target, some sort of fixture that's going to be kept in the mind, that's going to be kept made ready so that we can go forward and we can start working together. We will be able to achieve things better. So that's why this word target was brought into picture. First time ever. Please understand that target doesn't just mean about something achieving, but this is more about the factor that you're going to combine multiple things and you are going to get something meaningful. Let's move further. Now, in the pre-scientific, the industrial revolution, the newer dimension taken up by management because of the involvement of certain notable personalities, they brought in some effective methods. Whenever we talk about an evolution, I'm not using the word revolution, I'm using the word evolution. Why? Because management is more about an evolution. It's not revolution. You're not fighting against something. You're not going to create a disruption, but rather you're going to evolve. You're going to involve people. You're going to make them think out of the box. So you're going to bring in fresh ideas. You're going to bring in new thought process that's going to create something miracle. That's going to create something magic inside the system. So I use this word evolution. Why? Because management has taken a step forward in terms of creating something new in that industrialization era period. So what we tried to do with management is that we started getting inside some meaningful thought process, some ideas that could be put forward so that you could give some precise direction to the entire activity. Now, one side, when the industrialization era started picking up and started growing up in its own way, in its own manner, automatically people started asking how I need to take it forward. What is my next course of action? Will I get promoted? Will I move forward? What will be my next part of my career planning? All sort of questions started coming into the minds of people. Now, because of this simple factor, we see that all the factors, all the activities had something really meaningful, had something really intact, close altogether. So the concept of management was brought into picture, was brought into action precisely to give direction, take it forward in such a manner that definitely we are going to achieve some meaningful results. Now, moving further, the classical theory. Robert Owens, Charles Babbage, and other prominent personalities are regarded to be the management pioneers. However, their contribution to the evolution of management was definitely lower. But then, starting from the 19th century, when we talk about the great personalities like Grant or F.W. Taylor, Emerson, all of these people were the basis for the classical theory. The 19th century started seeing management booming up like a bright sunflower coming out and facing the sun. So you would start seeing that the involvement of management into engineering, into science, into every single activity started becoming so prominent that management started creating its own identity in every single vertical of the organization. So you would try to appreciate this factor that management actually took the reins over of all the organization, of all the industries, companies, wherever we are talking about, and they started setting up the rules, the guidelines, how to move further. So that's why the establishment of scientific management started coming into picture. Now, further during the classical period, the management thought was focused on standardization, job content, labor division, scientific approaches, and it is also related closely to industrial revolution and large-scale enterprises. Quite a lot of words. Why? Because when we started thinking about management, you also need to understand how are you going to manage the labor? What kind of job? What kind of roles? Will that be sufficient? Will that actually help them in the moving up their career? Will they be satisfied? What is the exact direction that your organization have? How many people? What kind of staffing? So, a whole lot of questions that we need to answer from a management standpoint. So this concept started moving more towards answering to some of the finer points of management, like, the division of labor, standardization, what kind of approach, how do we handle people, how do we take them forward, do we need any sort of specific qualification? So everywhere management was trying to tune itself to a better position altogether. Now, that fine-tuning of management actually started making it so well precise that every organization now started feeling the heat. They started feeling the need factor, saying that, yes, this is what we need to take it forward in terms of making it stronger, in terms of taking it to the next level as far as possible. The Neoclassical Theory, which is also very, very important here. Now, this is all about the duration of the evolution of management thought is better version of the classical theory. Why? Because it's a modified version. Now, anything that comes up in management or in the era of science has always led to modifications, because we believe that there is nothing called as best. There's always a room for improvement. So, moment the classical theory came into existence, automatically the neoclassical theory started developing with belief that yes, we can come up with a modified version, with a better version altogether. So the classical theory primarily focused on the areas of physical resources and management, whereas the neoclassical theory focuses on something called as relationship and ecosystem. Let me just spend a minute here. The word called as employee relationship and ecosystem. Until now, organizations only believe that there is a company, a person goes to the company to work, he earns some money and he just walks out. So the relationship between an organization and an worker is just like an employer-employee. I just pay you for the work you do and you keep working. But then slowly management started understanding, especially the neoclassical theory started understanding it's something bigger. It's something even more intrinsic in nature. You cannot just say that he's just a laborer who'll come into your organization, work 8 hours and take the money. It is all about understanding the employee-employer relationship. It is 8 long hours the employee puts in his time, money, energy, effort in order to achieve something. So which means to say that the employer needs to understand the employee to the closer levels as far as possible. A better focus is needed there. So that's where the employee-employee relationship has to start growing up, and the work environment, the ecosystem. How good is the work environment? You're not just going to say that because I'm paying you, you cannot just have a work environment that is shabby, that is unhygienic, or that is not friendly to the employee. You need to have a work environment that is pleasant, that is employer friendly, and that gives the employee the feel good factor that yes, I'm working for this great organization. So we started concentrating on the work dynamics rather than the work itself. Moving further, the evolution of management thought, where you start seeing that organizations were shaped effectively by the prominent writers of management, the governance of the various kingdoms, descriptions that were formed in the literature that helped them to develop the management, several heads of the religions, political affairs. Everybody started, especially these 2 books, which are very, very close to my heart. I would always like to suggest all of you to read this book. Sun Tzu's Art of War, which is very, very important, and Chanakya's Ardhashastra, which is another important book that is we need to study. Why? Because both of these books will actually tell you what exactly management is all about. It might look like a one-liner, but let me tell you, Sun Tzu's Art of War exactly tells how you need to prepare, not just for a war, but also in life. So both of them were able to come up with some beautiful books, models, which told us how you can reshape the entire concept of management. Now, the evolution of management science also made with civilizations, science with the entire concept of writing theories, all those things that we have in the present day is an evolution thought process of the beginning. This helps people to improve the knowledge of the process, as well as the utilizing this principle will help us to work better. So whatever literature, whatever theory we have got these days is actually a treasure given to us from the past. This is the literature that we have carried forward in terms of working, in terms of making things better, and in terms of making the entire management concept a really appreciable idea. With this, I come to the end of this session. I hope and believe that all the concepts that were shared today in the class will be of a great value to you. In the upcoming classes, we will be talking about the concepts of management in a different form and format. Until then, thank you and goodbye from my side.